broken system, chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rot and greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
These are not woke people, but I had this little clip and I thought you'd find it very interesting. It's the military of the past, let's call it the Trump military, compared to the very woke military that we have now. I think you'll get a kick out of it.
You little scumbag! I got your name! I got your ass! You will not laugh! You will not cry! You will learn by the numbers!
Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month, and actually, let's declare it a summer of pride.
So you're a killer? Sir, yes, sir! Let me see your war face! Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face! Now let me see your war face! Ah! Bullshit! You didn't convince me! Let me see your real war face! Ah!
I hear it and I know, I know you wanna take.
You will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death, praying for war. But until that day, you are pukes. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human fucking beings. You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit.
How to
Abracadabra, these bitches know I got answers the way I...
It looks to me like the best part of you ran down the crack of your mama's ass and ended up as a brown stain on the mattress. I love working for Uncle Sam. I love working for Uncle Sam. Let me know just who I am. Let me know just who I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps.
So it's a little exaggeration, probably really not that much, actually.
Just a little exaggeration. Good morning and welcome to the Bullpen, or good afternoon in some areas. I'm very happy that Trump decided in that montage to only use like 3-second sound bites from the dims, because the music won't strike us, I think. So that was very kind of him to make it friendly to the YouTubers. But yeah, it's another Sunday. We got a bullpen. We got little Chad. We got Slender. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Doing pretty good.
You guys are hanging out in the same place, I hear.
Yeah, we're really close, so I'm trying not
Yeah.
to be loud, but I'm usually pretty loud.
Yeah, we have otherwise the two mics will pick up the crosstalk and it'll be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird.
I don't know how people do it at the meetups where they have everyone sitting at one table on the mics. It must go into a single soundboard or something. I don't know what the setups are. Is that how you do it?
Yes. We use a soundboard that we plug all the mics into.
It's gay.
It lets you talk sitting around a table without there being any crosstalk or echo. Can't help that you guys just aren't on that level yet.
We have no reason.
We haven't got that Phasmophobia money's not coming in yet, so we got.
It's true. Well, yeah, it's been a weird week in politics. We saw Kamala just kind of do a media blitz, and all it has done is backfire on her. She's done Howard Stern. Howard Stern is now just a absolute putz that nobody gives a crap about, so I'm not sure what the point was there. She did a sex podcast, where normally you're learning how to give a blowjob, but Kamala thought, hey, this is somebody I should go talk to.
I believe the name of it, what is it, like Call Me Daddy or something?
Call her daddy, I think.
Like, if you're a serious president, I know Trump has gone on podcasts, but I don't think he's gone on like any OnlyFans level influencer podcast with silly titles like that. It's crazy.
No, Theo Vaughn and a few others, but Barron seems to be leading him in the right way on who he should appear on for podcasters and YouTubers.
Is Rogan? Do we think Rogan's this week?
Trump definitely said, yes, I'll do Rogan. And I think he said, yes, there's already something in place to do Rogan. So I would imagine it's this week. Sorry about the car. So that'll be gigantic because, I mean, they're making a big deal about the Call Her Daddy podcast. And who cares? I mean, the people that were probably voting for her, I mean, that's the only audience that show probably has. So, I don't know. It seemed weird to be doing those podcasts, and what we got from that is essentially a 10-point lead for Trump at this point. I mean, it helped her 0%. It probably hurt her more than it helped. The Howard Stern thing was just absolutely stupid. Stern, who had Trump on over 40 times over the years, has thrown his weight, whatever weight he has left, so far behind Kamala Harris that it was not so much an interview as just a fawning for her. So,
yeah, Howard Stern even said that in the interview. He's like, I want to be careful. I want to make sure I'm helping you as we do this interview.
Yeah, that's how he opened it up. I want to make sure that this makes you look good. It didn't.
Well, I mean, in addition to him being completely irrelevant since, 20 years ago or so? Like, he
lost all credibility during COVID. I mean, the fact that he's scared to death and still lives scared to death of COVID.
Well, and then he's talking about how Trump, like, I was raised not to be a narcissist. Really? I don't think the lesson took, because you are a textbook narcissist.
The
you don't like Trump
king
because
of all
he's
media.
better than you.
King of all media.
Yeah, the self-professed king of all media.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You also had Tim Waltz out there giving a few interviews. They did not go well either. I mean, if you wanted to sink your campaign, the best person you could pick to do it is Tim Walz. Everywhere he turns, he is just saying things that he may personally think, but then the campaign's having to come back and be like, no, that's not the campaign stance. So we'll play a clip of one of those real quick because we've got the interview with Strahan where Waltz is talking about, we got to abolish the Electoral College. And then the campaign said, no, that's not what we're saying. And Waltz is like, well, yeah, it is. So let's throw this up here real quick.
I want to go back to something you said on Tuesday. You said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. But the campaign came out later that night, and they said that's not their stance.
Well, it's not the campaign's position. And the point I'm trying to make is that there's folks that feel every vote must count in every state. And I think some of folks feel that's not the case. Our campaign does that. And the point I'm saying is I'm in 5 states in 2 days. We're out there making the case that the campaign's position is clear, that that's not their position. Their position and my position is to make sure that everybody understands their vote, no matter what state they're in, matters.
So that's something that you and Vice President Harris disagree on?
I have spoken about it in the past, that she's been very clear on this, and the campaign and my position is the campaign's position.
I want to go back to something you said on Tuesday. You said,
the campaign's position and my position is the position, but it's not the position of the campaign. Don't mistake this.
Hey, you know who never talks about changing the rules of a game? The guy who's winning.
Yeah. It's amazing that the Dems do not see how many times all of these people are saying, yeah, let's change every norm in the country just to make it work for us, just so we can keep power.
I know that's come up with the debate issue where Kamala keeps begging and begging for another debate, and Trump has said, no, I'm good. And what people seem to memory hole is that Trump suggested and offered 3 debates when Kamala first became the candidate, and she was the one who ducked him, because at the time they felt like she was in a position of media strength and didn't accurately read the tea leaves of what would happen once people actually remembered who Kamala was and that she was the one running.
Yeah, at this point, Trump is so far ahead, why would he give her a debate? And the fact that she completely dodged the Fox News debate, which is the only one that might have been a little bit adversarial to him, says, yeah, she's not serious, so why should he be taking her serious at this point? There is no point in debating for him. Vance already destroyed Walz. And at this point, I think you could say that the first debate, even though Trump didn't come out of it looking great, it was either a tie or he won, because she got no bump out of it. He got all the sound bites and the pictures out of it that we needed. So,
well, yeah, and let's talk about the hypocrisy of the networks too. How many debates, discussions, town halls, and everything else did Kamala duck out of early on in her, and I'm using finger quotes, candidacy, that they never even mentioned? But as soon as Trump canceled on them on one, I remember seeing it on the news. They were like, Trump was extended an invitation to attend this discussion. However, he said he didn't want to because of the fact checking. Then he changed his story and said that he couldn't because of X, Y, and Z. And they just, I swear, they had like a 90-second soundbite of them just talking about how big a piece of garbage Trump is for skipping that event.
Well, that's kind of like the 60 Minutes thing. It's like right before her 60 Minutes interview, which also went very poorly because she was asked the same question multiple times and was not able to give an answer.
That was the one, I think, actually. I think it was the 60 Minutes one.
60 Minutes said, well, he won't come on because he might be fact-checked. And the other reason he wouldn't come on is because he called us liars for saying that we did not fact-check the Hunter Biden laptop story well enough.
Well, and they lied in that statement, too, because they said, he didn't want to come on because he was afraid he'd get fact checked, which is something we do with all our candidates during these discussions. And I'm like, you have never fact checked Kamala Harris in your life, you liar.
Right. But if you go back to that 60 Minutes interview about the Hunter Biden laptop, they flat out told him, no, it can't be verified. We can't verify it, so you can't bring that up. And of course, it was verified. It had been verified for a year by the FBI. All they had to do was do some actual journalism. They refused to do that. So, yeah, I don't blame him for not wanting to go on 60 Minutes. At this point, I don't see a reason for Trump to go on anything else except for some podcasts. Sounds like we may be getting Joe Rogan, so we'll see how that goes. I think Eric Myers had said he was worried about Joe Rogan. I don't think that'll be an issue because Trump's able to actually speak. I mean, if Joe Rogan asks him a hard question, he's going to give an actual answer because he actually has actual positions that he has taken. So I don't think that'll be a problem for Trump. And if they sit down with Trump and Vance, I mean, I think that would even be more interesting. So, since we were talking about debates and talking about Democrats going against the norms, we'll play one other clip. This is actually from the California U.S. Senate race, where Adam Schiff once again lays out what they're going to try to do to change the country in defense of our democracy. So let's get this one up here real quick. Not Chad. All right.
Mr. Schiff, for or against abolishing the filibuster?
I'm for abolishing the filibuster because, Mark, if we're ever going to restore voting rights, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we're going to want to take meaningful action on gun safety legislation with the universal background checks, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want comprehensive immigration reform, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want to restore reproductive freedom to millions of women in California, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. And as to packing the court, Mr. Garvey, in case you weren't paying attention, it's already been packed. It was packed with reactionary justices who took away the reproductive freedom for millions of people. That court ought to be term limited. There should be enforceable sanctions, ethics sanctions, an enforceable ethics code for that court, like any other federal employee. And yes, that court should be rebalanced because I don't want my kids growing up under this kind of a reactionary and partisan Supreme Court.
To the people listening, both in this state and around the country, what he's talking about is eliminating free speech. This administration is constantly talking about taking away the free speech of the people, doing away with the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is under attack by Mr. Schiff and his party. That's why you need a voice like mine in the U.S. Senate starting next January.
Yeah, so once again, I mean, that's 2 times in the last week that we've seen major Democrat officials saying what they're going to do to destroy our Constitution and our democracy, whether it be getting rid of the Electoral College, getting rid of the filibuster, packing the court. All of these things are within the norm for the Democrats at this point. Had you guys seen that clip?
I just saw it now. It is interesting that everything that they are talking about as impediments to their agenda are all specifically the changes and amendments to the Constitution that were put in place specifically to guarantee individual freedom.
Right.
So it is, I mean, if you go to the Federalist Papers and read the explanations on why those tweaks and amendments were put into the Constitution to begin with, it was all to create what are negative rights to the government, meaning they can't take away these individual freedoms. And it's no mistake that the Democratic Party is saying all these darn individual freedoms, they're making it so hard for us to do the agenda we want.
Yeah. We keep hearing the democracy crap, and at every turn, all we hear from their side is we're going to get rid of all the things that make us an actual republic. They want to go to an actual democracy where it is majority rules on every single topic, and then have New York and California take over the country.
Yeah, we wish to have the right for 51% of the people in this country to control via vote the other 49% of this country. I mean, that's not freedom. They don't want freedom. It's gone under their policies.
Yep. And they just keep saying it out loud, and people don't actually listen to them. In the meantime, Trump is going to destroy everything. And it's like, we've had 4 years of Trump. It didn't happen. Sure, he did his actual job of appointing justices, and those justices did their actual job of interpreting the Constitution, and you guys are pissed about it. But, I mean, that's what their job was, and that's what his job was. That wasn't destroying the country. That was doing what a president is supposed to do.
Well,
and then the
if
justices getting a case.
If you live in California, what do you care if you can or cannot get an abortion in Tennessee? Like, why is that even on your radar? Like, you're never going there anyway. It's a flyover state, isn't it? Like,
right. Well, and that's what this race has turned into. At this point, that is the only talking point they've got. I mean, they can't talk about the economy. They can't talk about foreign policy. All this is, well, we want our abortions on demand, anytime, every time.
Anywhere, because as the chat has pointed out, when Trump appointed the Supreme Court justices that provided the majority that allowed Roe v. Wade, and actually more Casey, which was a case out of Pennsylvania that had replaced Roe v. Wade. I know Roe v. Wade is the thing they talk about, but in 1988, Casey became the effective Supreme Court precedent that determined what could be done in the United States. When that got overturned and it was sent back to the states, the Supreme Court didn't tell any state what they could or couldn't do with abortion laws. What the Supreme Court effectively said is every state gets to pass its own legislation, and California immediately, as far as I'm aware, or at least very quickly, codified some of the more extreme positions on abortion rights. When Alan Schiff gets up there and says, if you don't send me to the Senate, Californians will lose their reproductive rights, it's ridiculous, because as far as I know, in California now, they have full late term, everything is on the table. The full Tim Waltz menu from Minnesota is on the table.
Minnesota, California, Colorado, up until the minute of birth. And then, as we've seen at least 8 times in Minnesota alone, 8 times after birth.
As former Governor of Virginia Ralph Northam said in his famous interview, that's when the doctor's going to have a conversation while they put the little baby aside on the table and figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, which ultimately means either you give it some comfort, or you just let the baby die on the table.
Life-saving care, and
right.
Apparently, even though it is now born, it still doesn't have any bodily autonomy. It's still apparently the woman's right to choose. It's like, just call it what it is. That is a 4th trimester abortion.
That's infanticide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all this election has come down to, is we want to have the levers of control and power so that we can force abortion on the country as a national issue by making Roe versus Wade actual law, federal law. Because they can't handle
sacrifices. That's what that is.
They can't handle that 10 states have now basically done away with abortion. So we must impose it on those states. That's all they've got. I hate to do this to everybody, but we're going to have to look at the male feminist for Kamala commercial. Because it's too good not to.
Is that the one you made me watch yesterday?
Probably.
Ugh.
It is the epitome of why Kamala is tanking in the polling and all the data, because this is what they think is going to somehow appeal to the demographic they're losing.
This is what they think males are, and masculinity is.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president? Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement. Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions. Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women. Or one of those pants books that the sisters like. I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me. I love women. I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
I think that one dude who wanted to give his full-throated responses because he's used to having something go down that throat. But that's just...
I mean, he wanted to throat something.
I don't hear you now, Brahma.
I don't hear Brahma either.
All right, well, it looks like Brahma is resetting to get his audio working again. But so the Men for Kamala ad is a spectacular backfire. If you believe theories that there's moles in the organization, maybe left over from Biden's team, that want Kamala to lose, that's the kind of ad you would make.
Yeah. The antithesis of masculinity.
Well, and I mean, the whole commercial is none of them, they're all stereotypes. They're all archetypal males who are played by people who are clearly not the archetype they're designed to represent. Like the guy sitting on the tailgate of the truck.
Yeah, the orange shirt with his legs
crossed. Show me
crossed.
You've never sat on the tailgate of a truck without showing me you've never sat on the tailgate of a truck.
Yeah. Crossing his legs, very ladylike. I think Twitter has basically brought that out as, yeah, we've found all of their resumes. They're all actors, and at least one of them is gay. So, shocking.
Oh, I think it was Truck Guy.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was Truck Guy.
The way his hands were on his leg, I was like, that's unnatural.
And somebody in chat said it. I don't know that it's true, but I think it was Pinochet said the big dude, the fat guy, in the commercial is a writer for Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, the one who eats carburetors for breakfast.
He eats everything for breakfast.
Yeah. Guy doesn't miss breakfast, that's for sure. Bad take. Even we chicks don't sit cross-legged on the tailgate of our trucks. Chad sharing something. Let me bring it up. As a very loud car goes by.
That was that biker from the commercial.
Yeah. Eating carburetors.
I wanted to share this because that ad being released is a good example of what's actually happening. This is from the latest NBC poll that just dropped this morning, which actually is a registered voter poll and showed Trump and Kamala tied at 48. That's down. Last time they did this poll around the first third of September, she was up 5. But look at the negatives. She's gone from positive 48 to negative 45, which was a +3, to a -6 in a matter of 30 days, in less than 30 days. That's a 9-point negative swing.
Well, she was the most unpopular vice president in the history of America up until she was suddenly announced as the presidential candidate. The whole thing is a farce. Like they made this up out of whole cloth. She was never popular. Trump may not be gaining any support, but she is losing more and more of the artificially created support she had to begin with every single day. So I don't think she was ever ahead, but I'm watching her consistently fall behind.
I think Trump is gaining support because I think people are looking at her and saying, yeah, this is not a person who can be in charge of this country. And even her own words say that she has no commitment to anything.
Well, the other thing her words are showing in her media blitz that she's now making is when asked directly, where do you differ with what Joe Biden has done in the last 4 years? Where would you have had a different policy? What that question is, and this is why she's an idiot. That question is teeing up with everybody's unhappy with what's happened. Tell us what you would have done so that we'd be happy and better off. And she's got free and clear. She was the vice president, right? Even though we know that she did pass the tie-breaking vote on some of that legislation, she has the opportunity because the media is going to cover for her. She could just point blank completely lie and come, say where she had politics. She doesn't. She actually says, well, me and Joe, we were tight. I can't think of one thing where I would have done something different. And I can't help but feel like that's also like those answers along those lines and people hearing it when she's giving local news interviews or saying it on The View is what's cratering her support. And these are not people who are necessarily going to run out and vote for Trump, but what it does is it makes them apathetic and say, what's the point?
Yep.
Because they'll say, I can't bring myself to vote for Trump, but I know at least if Trump wins, I'll be able to buy groceries. So maybe I just stay home.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, she answered that question so horribly by saying, yeah, there's nothing I would do different. I mean, she could have even answered with the truth, which is I would have gone much further left and it might have gotten her more support on the left. But the answer of, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything different from what Joe Biden did works for nobody. And the reality is she would be much further left than Biden has gone. I mean, Biden has been controlled the whole time. So it is the progressive left that has been making law. But Biden was not as left as she wants to go. I mean, we can look at that from the statements that have been made about, the ones that we've gone over this morning, about the Electoral College, about the filibuster, about everything. Let me pop that up real quick.
This is just a meme that I found because I think it's hilarious. It's God saying to Cain, "Where's your brother?" and Cain saying, "First of all, I grew up in a middle class household." Because even last night on Saturday Night Live's Cold Open, you can see where the room is being read when they were doing like a Family Feud sketch, and it was her and Trump at the face-off, and Kamala hits the button and wins, and she immediately goes, well, I was born a middle class, and the Keenan, the guy playing Steve Harvey immediately puts his head down and is like, "Oh God, here we go."
Yep.
And he's like, "Just keep going, just keep going." Like even Saturday Night Live, which is clearly pro-left and wants Trump to lose, has to acknowledge what everybody knows, which is that Kamala is a scripted machine that can't do anything but answer any question, even if it was in Family Feud, with these things.
Yeah, then imagine her across the table from some other world leaders. I mean, there's no freaking way she can handle herself with anybody because she can't think off the top of her head. Real quick, we'll just play this one to demonstrate the flip-flops of Kamala Harris.
I intend on extending a tax cut, repealing that tax bill they just passed. And also looking at estate taxes are going to have to go up.
Everything from a 70 to 80% tax rate.
I think that's fantastic. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
She was big on defund the police.
For too long, the status quo thinking has been
you get more safety by putting more cops on the street. Well, that's wrong.
She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
Abolish ICE.
Yeah, we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad.
Bidenomics is working. It's working. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. My agenda includes attempting to get Congress to act, but if they don't within the first 100 days of my administration, I'm going to take executive action. Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options.
I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance.
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Very effective campaign ad.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
So there's a few things in there we can address. Me and Tim Walz are both gun owners. I didn't pull the video, but did anybody see Tim Walz trying to load his gun yesterday?
I didn't
on
see
his
that
pheasant
video,
hunt?
but I did see some people start asking a lot of questions because Kamala is a resident of California, or she's a resident of DC. You know, one or the other.
Right.
Both places have super specific rules about owning handguns. And someone was like asking the question, where's the paperwork? She says she clarified now that she purchased a Glock.
Right.
Like just a Glock. That's what she called it. I got a Glock. Of course, whatever. And so somebody was like, in California, here's all the umpteen forms you're supposed to have, to verify a handgun purchase, handgun ownership, all the regulations you're supposed to follow. None of that is available. It's interesting because much like the McDonald's job, it's being said, but there's no actual backup.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you guys saw what Trump said about the McDonald's job. Did you guys hear?
I showed
that?
it to you. I was wondering, I'll go to McDonald's, I'll work there for 10 minutes, and I'll have more time working at McDonald's than her.
I'll cook one order of fries, and I'll have worked there longer than she did.
I get the distinct impression he's going to do it, too. He's going to show up in a McDonald's and serve a couple people as a stunt, and it's going to be an awesome stunt, mind you. And I'm here for it, man.
A huge stunt.
Yeah, if that McDonald's was anywhere near here, I would go there. I would go there in a heartbeat.
I'm waiting for the next Project 2025 meme. It's going to be Trump's going to bring back Supersize to McDonald's. It's like
I would vote for that alone. Supersized? Yes!
We're going to have value meals.
Whichever McDonald's he works at, they will have like break out from their secret storeroom the supersized fry containers. And Trump will be like, I'm working the fries. Everyone's getting supersized fries. The biggest, hugest fries. That's what I make.
You know, when you get the medium fry and the large fry right next to each other, but the large fry is only filled up to the same height as the medium fry, we're going to actually fill the large fry all the way. You're going to get your large fries.
I'm also going to actually fill your beverage to the top instead of 3/4.
We're going to give you less ice. It'll be a perfect ratio of ice. It'll keep the drink cold, but you'll actually get more liquid.
Everyone who got my drink said that I made the perfect ice to water to soda ratio. It was amazing. People are saying that my sodas are the best.
When I fry the fries, they're going to be done in the beef tallow again, so they actually taste right.
Vegans are gonna not. Vegans, you're just gonna enjoy it. You can enjoy it. It's beef tallow. It's fine. You can.
Screw you guys.
When I get Trump's going to be like, I'm going to go to Colorado and I'm going to immediately get a reservation at Casa Bonita. They're just going to let me in.
They will. He did come to Colorado last week, actually Friday.
I know, and announced Operation Aurora and using several 1800s era laws to plan to immediately get rid of these gangs.
The gangs that don't exist. And we do have a clip from this morning.
The Martha Raddatz clip?
Oh, yes. We've got Martha Raddatz. Let me grab that one real quick, and we'll play it because J.D. Vance masterfully took down Martha Raddatz this morning. It was glorious. All right.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
So Martha Raddatz is one step away from here's why it was good that the Venezuelan gangs took over the apartment complexes.
Yeah.
She's probably gonna be like, they instituted rent controls, so everybody was happier.
Yeah, we are in the stages of Democrats actually having to acknowledge something that's happening, because first off, it's no, that's insane. There's no way it's happening. Then it's, well, it's happening a little, but what's the problem? Then it'll be, it's good that it's happening. And then it'll be, this is why we need this to happen.
I mean, it's only a couple of hostile takeovers on American soil. We used to call that an act of war. Also, that woman has a witch nose. Did anyone else notice that? Like, she is a witch.
No, every time I see her, I just think, remember when she played the librarian in Ghostbusters right at the beginning?
Somebody needs to drop a house on her.
In Minecraft.
Yeah, it's Martha Raddatz generally is like she's a sweeper, to use the internet parlance. She goes in and she tries to sweep up to cover up whatever the left-wing mistake is. Come the election night, as was in 2016, she would be one of the people who's I would want to watch live coverage of for the tears if and when Trump starts winning, because I remember my guilty pleasure is still to occasionally watch the supercuts of the 2016 election reactions as the results came in. And
I just like watching the Young Turks, breakdown video throughout the night. It's like 20 minutes long. Yeah, they go from being all elated to eventually screaming and yelling at each other.
It's Anna
Kasparian
might be a little like, she'd be one of those, she's gonna be like, oh no, stop, Trump, don't win. Oh
yeah.
No.
I don't think Anna is.
Her and Cenk have a fight on air. We're gonna have to tune in and see if they come to blows at some point. Occasionally just check in on that, because they'll fight. I think they'll fight.
Well, Cenk has said that he's not going to fire her, but she has effectively left the progressive left. She's not going to vote for Trump, obviously.
He may not be going to fire her right now. He might change his mind live on air that night.
That night, yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, so this is going to be a good opportunity to remind people that we do plan to have an election night stream. Have some fun. Yep. We're going to be able to pop in and out and see those reactions as things are going on. Me and Slender are obviously East Coast time, and so we'll be here doing that going into the time. I know Slender's made the arrangements for him to have some time off there. So
the next day. I expect that we will actually have a president by Wednesday afternoon this year.
I don't even think it'll take into Wednesday.
We may actually have an election night president.
I get the feeling it's going to be a lot like 2016, if not even faster, because all it's going to take is one of the blue state dominoes to fall within that evening, and it's done. And I think Pennsylvania will be that one early.
Yeah, she essentially has to have all of the Rust Belt. Trump just has to take one away. And Pennsylvania, it's a 10-point lead right now in reality. Based on the betting markets and the polling, he's running away with Pennsylvania. And if that one falls, it's over, because they keep trying to bring North Carolina into it, and North Carolina is not going to go blue.
No,
So-
North Carolina ain't going anywhere.
She
it's
has
good.
no path to victory at this point. She would have to, I mean, her firewall has already been broken from every bit that we have seen. So let's see what Chad's got here. Go ahead. Or is it just a screenshot?
A terrible week. It was a terrible week for the Harris this campaign. You had Gretchen Whitmer having to apologize to Catholics across America for mocking them with some bizarro Dorito thing on there. You had Governor Elmer Fudd out hunting and not knowing how to load his shotgun, using the wrong gun. At the same time,
Who's Governor Elmer Fudd?
Governor Waltz was out there. Looked like Elmer Fudd. You know, be very, very quiet while hunting for rabbits.
Oh my God.
Right? So he can't load his shotgun. He's trying to appeal to hunters. He can't load the gun. He's using the wrong gun. At the same time, you have Barack Obama in Pennsylvania where he derided people who own guns. Remember, people in Pennsylvania were bitter and they clinged to guns and religion. Remember that in 2008? So they're trying to appeal to those folks at the same time while he alienates black male voters by chastising them. So they had a really tough week this week. She had a terrible week.
Yeah. The whole Obama coming in and trying to be the savior there. All he really did was tell a whole bunch of black guys, yeah, well, you guys are just you're insane if you won't vote for a woman. And she grew up just like you. And she went to the same colleges as you. And it's like, no, she didn't grow up just like you, because she did not grow up in a middle-class family. She grew up with 2 tenured professors.
I grew up in America, so she didn't grow up like me.
Not Canada?
Nope.
Not the rich part of Canada? Yeah.
Specifically Montreal, too. Like, I mean, Montreal is its own little animal within Canada. She was within... the people taking care of those lawns she was talking about. This wasn't like in Compton. This was in the richest part of Montreal where Trudeau was growing up with his family.
Yeah. And us saying that, Pinochet brought up the fortification. I'm sure there's going to be fortification. But at this point, I don't know that the numbers are numbers that you can actually fortify against. And that's not to say don't go out and vote. Go out and vote as early as you can. Get out there immediately if it's already open for early voting. We have to have every vote. But there is nothing that says that even with fortification that she can win this election, really.
Getting me some confirmation from the chat where the Basco scenario. Saying, I am from Montreal. She lived in Westmont, the richest part of Montreal. So,
yeah. So,
I also don't think the Democrats are. Here's my thing. I know that we're all. This is going to be my white pill for the chat that's feeling a little down, which is they are not going to go all in for Kamala at this point because they don't want to blow their resources on something that they think isn't going to work. And they were doing it early. They pumped $1 billion into her campaign. This was her opportunity to try to save things. Like the switch was made to save down ticket, was to save Senate and to save the House. At this point, Kamala is hurting. We have seen now the leaks from Baldwin in Wisconsin and from Slotkin in Michigan. Where the internals, because of Kamala on the ticket, are dragging down these incumbents that were they were leading really big before they were leading by double digits when Joe Biden was on the ticket. And it's been since Kamala's on the ticket that they are now dragging these people down in their states and making them toss up Senate races.
Right. They're worried that nobody's going to show up to vote for her.
So if you want to talk about fortification, what they're going to do is they're going to let Kamala get sacrificed, because if they're going to invest in making the shenanigans happen, they're going to do it in the elections where it matters for them keeping power but not get questioned. No one's going to be going balls to the wall about election integrity because of Senate races in Michigan and Wisconsin. So if they're going to go ahead and let Kamala get trounced, and as Eric says, this is my long running theory that Shapiro and Whitmer are doing their most, and I think Whitmer proved it again this week
with her communion sacrilege.
Because Brahma, what was the most identifiable thing in that video? That Harris Waltz hat. Like if you don't know who Whitmer is, you're just going to think it's some random campaign person, but that Harris Waltz hat was in there to make things.
Yep.
There. She's trying to snake them.
Well, Whitmer is, and at this point, the only explanation for Joe Biden's actions is that he is also trying to snake bite her, because while she's been doing all this media blitz, Joe Biden showed up and actually showed up to the press room for the first time in his presidency, I think. And
was it while she was live on The View? He did it
live on The View or Howard Stern, because they were kind of back to back. And he basically came out and said, "Oh yeah, she's been an integral part of everything that we've done. She is the same as me," while she's out there trying to say that she is not the same as him. But then by that evening, she was back to, "I am the same as him. I would do nothing different." But Biden came out twice and undercut her appearances by going live with the press.
Dude,
and both times it was literally saying, "Yeah, she's with me. We're the same."
The second one about Ron DeSantis was the best undercut of them all, though. It really was.
No, Ron's got my cell phone number. Everything's fine in Florida.
He's doing a great job. We really appreciate all his support. He's been really communicative. He's got everything he needs. I told him he's got my cell phone number if he needs anything. Ron's a great guy.
Yeah, and that was between that and DeSantis's takedown of Kamala. It was beautiful, because she's sitting there throwing out to the press, DeSantis won't take my phone calls, and we've got a big hurricane coming, and he won't even talk to me and won't answer the phone. And DeSantis comes out and basically says, "Why would I talk to her? She's not the president. She's not in charge of anything. She's never been in charge of anything to do with hurricanes. I've got the cell phone for the actual president, and I've talked to FEMA. We're already ready to go. So why would I care?" And her response is still, "Well, he's being mean and playing politics. He's not talking to me." There's no reason to talk to you. You do not do anything. So
the borders are, not the FEMAs are. So what would
yeah, she doesn't know what a hurricane.
I would like to know what historical context any disaster impacted governor was ever calling the vice president to do, like, "Hey, let me call the vice president, not the president, not the director of FEMA, not Homeland Security," which, by the way, is now where FEMA is housed. So those are who you'd be calling: Secretary of Homeland Security, director of FEMA, and the president, because those are the people with direct line of authority for your disaster relief needs.
And
maybe
the money.
Maybe the SBA, the Small Business Administration, if you're trying to set up they have programs for disaster loans for businesses. Again, so in the previous administration, that would have been Linda McMahon. We would have been getting, the call, because she was the head of the Small Business Administration. It's the idea that she wasn't the one playing politics with trying to get a phone call to these governors, and the fact that Ron DeSantis wasn't going to play her little game. Sure, Roy Cooper would. He's a Democrat. Yeah, let him. He would be all about the theater, but
and look how well his state is doing.
Yeah, that is a little bit on purpose, clearly.
Well, and this is something you got to look at too, though, right? That something a lot of people didn't notice, and it kind of goes to what Chat was saying about Tim Pool and his ilk beating the old Civil War drums. they may be backing off of that very quickly, because when FEMA failed, a bunch of, military and veteran types stepped in and started organizing relief efforts. And I don't think that the Democrats remembered just how effective even our veterans can be. And maybe they don't think that martial law idea is going to fly as well as they thought it would now, when they're looking at their current military and reservists and veterans and everybody else who still gives a flying F about this country.
Yep. What else did we have this week? Oh, the whole line about Trump sent tests to Putin came out during the Howard Stern interview, or it came out just before it.
Like, what? Who cares?
The left is going absolutely nuts about this, saying that, well, that killed millions of Americans. It's like, the test only shows whether you have it. If you already had it, the test wasn't going to do anything different. And we were not.
And it killed millions of Russians, too. And the Russians would not be out of line to say, hey, America, that's kind of your fault, since you were secretly funding the research, weren't you? So, maybe a little peace offering ain't a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with the test, it makes absolutely no sense. They are grasping at straws at this point for anything to try to make Trump look bad. We were not in any way adversarial with Russia at the time either. It wasn't Russia that that had the lab.
We were donating supplies across the planet because in a genuine pandemic situation, you're going to want to, it's tests, right? We had ramped up our testing regime so much, we had billions of, anyway, whatever. But this is an interesting video because this is going to go to party identification. I believe they're going to be using the Gallup poll. Gallup, as a polling company, has been tracking self-identified party identification within the American population going back almost like 80, 90 years now. So they have this data for every basic election that we've run since the 1950s. And this is going to be a nice explainer on this big red alarm bell that's going on, or should be going off.
Yeah, all right, so party ID nationally. You go to October, November of 2016, Democrats had a 3-point advantage. You go 4 years ago, Democrats had a 6-point advantage. Look at where we are today, Manu. Republicans with a 1-point advantage. A very different picture, very much mirroring what we see in the party registration numbers in those key battleground states, and Pennsylvania in particular.
It actually just shows you, too, why Harris is doing what she's trying to do. She's trying to moderate a little bit on these issues, trying to reach those very voters, because the party registration is changing and the demographics of the voters are changing. And those are the people she needs to attract.
Absolutely. And the GOP leads by a point in party identification right now. The average when the Republican Party loses is the Democrats ahead by 8. When the Republican Party wins, the average party ID advantage for Democrats is 3. Republicans right now, Manu, are doing even better than the average when they win. If there's one little nugget that I think Republicans are really hopeful for, it's this party ID and this party registration data. It really points in a good direction for them and for Donald Trump.
Wow.
So just to, again, reiterate the point, Republicans will usually win in a Dem +3 ID environment. We are seeing it as Republican +1 as the Gallup, polling data. And this polling data, Gallup doesn't actually do like presidential horse race tracking anymore. So this is long-term, like public opinion data. So it is genuine, it is authentic, and it is accurate. So, and we've got like to like, right? They've been doing this polling for all these elections so we can compare what the results were when these things are happening. I can't think of the last time Republicans have ever had the party ID advantage. And maybe in 1994, maybe. I have to go back and double check. And that's when the Republicans finally took back Congress after 80 years. So this is a good big white pill showing you that the data, not the manipulated media data, but the actual like hard data, starts giving more evidence that Trump is actually winning.
Yeah, after years of Republicans being scared to wear a Trump hat out in public for fear of attack, those kinds of things. We are now seeing that
Celebrity
the left is
endorsements.
getting scared of saying, yeah, I'm for Kamala Harris.
I would say last night at Coachella, or the night before, Dennis Quaid came out.
Yep.
Like full throated at the, like, we're seeing Zachary Levi. Now, granted, some people are like, well, they're not full on celebrity. Any celebrity coming out and actually endorsing the Trump while still trying to actively be a Hollywood actor is different than we've seen before.
Right. Because it takes nothing to come out for a Democrat. It takes everything to come out for a Republican at this point. But it's shifting because at this point, people are feeling a little bit more able to come out on behalf of Trump. Whereas before, you would not see anybody doing it. James Woods, maybe, Voight, a few others, Kevin Sorbo.
I like Eric Meyer's comment. Zachary Levi is encouraging since he's under 70. Yeah,
right.
It's usually a lot of our older ones. Now, I did see the chat from Southern Bell. Yeah, the DOJ waited till the last minute Friday to file a lawsuit against Glenn Youngkin's voter rolls cleanup initiative. The rules say that you're not supposed to do these kinds of things within 90 days of the election. The thing is, Glenn Youngkin put this executive order in place within that. He did it outside of the 90 days. They've been doing this since the beginning of August. The DOJ waited until it was within the this window very close to the election to try to file suit to get an emergency thing. I don't think they're going to win, because what Youngkin put in place was a program to remove non-citizens from the voter rolls.
Right.
And the actual sequence of events for the removal is based on the non-citizen checking the box that they are not a citizen when they get their driver's license at the DMV. The DMV then sends that data to the local election board to say, this person has told us they are not a citizen. They should not be registered to vote. And at that point, the local election board notifies the person that they have told the DMV they're not a citizen. So unless they fix it, they will be removed from the roll. And so the citizen, if they are a citizen, still has the opportunity to go in and just correct it. And with the election board, not even the DMV, and the election board will retain them as a registered voter. So it's a fairly voter-friendly process to ensure that no one is disenfranchised. And the entire process starts with the person checking the box that they're not a citizen and shouldn't be able to vote when they get a driver's license.
Which seems perfectly reasonable to me. But I mean, obviously the shenanigans are already underway. Did you guys talk about the story in Arizona a week or two back where they discovered that, yes, in fact, there were probably over 200,000 votes that should not have been counted that were? I went and looked it up and I'm like, oh, and they were only about 120,000 apart in that state when Trump and Biden were campaigning.
Yeah, no, I don't think we covered that. Sorry, I was looking at something on Twitter. Scott Jennings is out there taking down people again.
Yeah, it was just something. Apparently, it's been confirmed by the judicial branch over there in Arizona that at least 200-something thousand votes were cast illegitimately in that state, and they let it slide. And they're still letting it slide. They're not correcting the voter rolls in Arizona until after this election because they don't want to make any changes this close to the election.
And it's they had no problem doing it in 2020.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, so those 200,000+ votes that you know are not legitimate, those can be cast again. Awesome. Great job, guys.
Yep. Arizona's got to be cleaned up.
Yep. So to continue my white pill Sunday for this is data coming in from Virginia, right? Virginia's been running in early voting since the beginning of September. And so this account has been posting on it. They've been tracking the 62 larger jurisdictions in Virginia aggregate voted for Biden 54-43 over, in the last election. And there's giant enthusiasm gap between red counties and blue counties in early voting. So Biden jurisdictions saw early voting turnout is down -20, -30, down to -40 compared in the same time in 2020. Trump jurisdictions saw initially, because there's that surge right when it opens and everyone went, they're only down 9 compared to what it was in 2020. And remember, 2020 was the Rona, so early voting where people could go in, away from large crowds was popular for a lot of people. So the enthusiasm gap is from 15 to 31 points over several weeks. Early voting is down 27%. Again, early voting tends to usually favor Democrat.
Yep.
Location.
Republicans traditionally vote on election day, even though at this point we're playing by their rules. I say go vote as soon as you can.
Yes. Yeah, it's a terrible idea to wait till election day. Don't wait. Just the sooner you can get that locked in, the better.
Yeah. Nationwide internet outage on election day. Oh no, we can't report anything.
Now, there was a water main break. Oh, we got to shut down the voting facility. Sorry, guys. GTFO.
Yep.
Now, to speak to where I think Virginia is, I don't have any illusion that Trump's going to carry Virginia. What he will do is cut into what the win was. Biden won by 10 points. Hillary won by 5.3. Back in 2012, Obama won by 3.9. What this is going to matter for is what he's saying right here. Marginal congressional districts like Congressional District 7. That one is currently represented by Abigail Sponberger, former CIA. I've talked with Brom about this in background, but the person running for that seat now for the Democrat nomination is Eugene Vindman. That name may sound familiar because he is the twin brother of
Alex Vindman.
The
whistleblower,
Alex
for
Vindman.
second impeachment.
Or
first impeachment. Sorry.
So he is he's trying to win that district, and this is where it matters because currently the Republicans hold the House of Representatives by 1 seat. 1.
Yeah.
And a lot of those seats were vacated, and so we would have a larger majority if some people hadn't retired and they haven't been replaced yet. So when this election, when you see Trump doing events at Madison Square Garden, when you see him doing events in Coachella in California, it's not because people think, in Trump's campaign or Trump thinks he's going to win New York or California. But do you know what New York and California have a shit ton of? Congressional seats.
Yep.
And they don't, and a lot of them, especially in Long Island, which is near Madison Square Garden, and Orange County, where a lot of people could go to the Coachella site. This is designed to use the term again, fortify the Republican majority in the House. I know that we don't like to think of it this way, but the House majority for the Republicans flows through New York and California. The seats that matter to retain that majority are we going to get those marginal seats in New York? Are we going to get those marginal seats in California? So when you see Trump out there doing that stuff, it means he's looking at the big picture for governing, and that's another good sign about where his internals are. And any seats like Congressional District 7 in Virginia, where we can get a pickup where it was a Democratic seat, just help that. So, this kind of stuff is all positive.
Yeah, she's playing defense in the states that she thinks she needs to, like Pennsylvania and Michigan, and visiting there over and over and over. Trump is on offense going into states that, yeah, he's not going to win, but the down ballot can be influenced there. So,
yeah, and I know Southern Belle was asking about Cal winning. It's a very uphill battle for Cal to win in Virginia, just because Kane has the power of incumbency. He's a former governor. If anybody could do it, it would probably be Cal in this presidential year where Democratic enthusiasm is down and Republican enthusiasm is up. He also The Asian community, which normally votes very strongly Democratic in Northern Virginia in the counties of Fairfax and Loudoun and Arlington, Cal has a unique story that appeals to them, but also I'm not really into the identity politics where people will vote for him just because he's Asian, because he's a Republican, so that doesn't usually seem to happen. But what would matter is that the Democrats in Virginia have been effing over the Asian community with a lot of their DEI education policies, which are specifically keeping a lot of Asian communities out of magnet schools and governor's schools, specifically Thomas Jefferson, the best high school in the country, quote unquote, which was 75% Asian student population before they didn't like that, because it was all based on test scores. You had to test into that high school, and they decided that was wrong. And so the Asian communities in those areas are very unhappy with a lot of those policies. It's what helped Youngkin win when he was running for governor. So Cal's got an outside shot, but it would be an underdog shot. It would, if Trump has coattails, which I think he actually does based on his previous elections, it could help if people are, and mainly like I talked about, if people who weren't going to vote for Trump just decide they're not showing up when they're dissatisfied with Kamala and just don't vote at all, because those would be the people who would push the down ballot higher past where Cal could make it happen. It's still I wouldn't bet on it. If you're talking about being able to go on a betting market, I don't think that one is a safe bet.
Yeah, not a safe bet, but I mean, at this point, you're trying to get whatever you can. Because even if Trump gets in, if we don't have any other levers, all you're doing is executive orders again, and we saw how easily those are dismantled. So, I haven't watched this clip yet, but since it's Scott Jennings, who just recently, to me, has come on the playing field, this guy has been dismantling CNN panels for the past 3 weeks now, just destroying everything they say. So I kind of want to hear what he says about Tim Walz
he won't
here.
last much longer. They're going to be getting rid of him. He's too good.
Yeah. As soon as the election is over, this guy's going to be out of a job at CNN.
It was a rough week.
But he'll be press
her
secretary.
faves are down.
Maybe.
They're struggling with, the front page of the New York Times this morning, Democrats struggling with African-American voters, particularly African-American men. This gender gap issue is real. It's a real problem, and you see the Democrats reacting to it. And I think what they are now finally in October, the election, coming to realize is that a lot of men think Democrats care more about dudes who want to become women than dudes who just want to be dudes. And no hunting, cosplay, or cringy videos is going to change it. The bet is made. Working class men, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white, persistently, consistently do not believe the Democratic Party, and specifically Kamala Harris, are going to do a thing for them. They've been told that they're the problem, and I suspect they're going to rise up on Election Day and tell the elites who told them that you're wrong. It was a rough week. Her faves are down. They're struggling with, the front page of the New York Times
killing
this
it.
morning, Democrats.
The rough week continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I especially love the hunting cosplay.
Eric, how come no Rumble today? Because I set it up at about 1 o'clock last night, and I forgot to set up Rumble, and then didn't notice it until after we had gone live. Oops.
All right, got some polling if we want to hit that.
Yep, it's about that time.
All right, this is our national polling, Kamala versus Trump. And we've had the normal drops, which is interesting. Look at this. ABC News is still dropping a registered voter poll with no margin of error and no count for its sample, which is terrible. And it's still only showing Harris +2. CBS News doing a likely voter screen, margin of error 2.3 on a national poll, Harris +3. I think we've talked before about how anytime the Democrat is polling +3 nationally or less, it's basically tracking for an electoral college win for Republican. And then the more interesting one is that NBC News had a 1,000 voter sample registered voter poll with a trustworthy margin of error, nothing crazy, where it had it tied. I mean, and this is a registered voter poll, which makes me think that if they applied the likely voter screen data, it would have shown Trump up. So they probably spiked
Filtered.
that part and didn't put out their likely voter screen data, and instead just put out the tie because they didn't want to. If they had put out the likely voter screen with Trump up, it might have actually swung this, spread. Historically, in 2020, Biden was polling plus 10 in October at this same time, and Clinton was plus 6.7, and Harris is at plus 1.7. It is bad data all around.
What about that morning consult poll down there at Harris plus 5? But then I look at the sample size and I'm like, your sample size is 11,353 likely voters? That's a weird number. How many did you throw out because they gave the wrong answer?
So Morning Consult,
and it's a week old.
I believe Morning Consult uses the Ipsos panel, which is an online. So a lot of these places are using the same source paneling, which is online. I think it's Ipsos.
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. Basically, just gathers the data from all these people, and then the individual pollsters can look at the raw data and kind of extrapolate what they want to use for their analysis.
Apply whatever weighting they want.
They have to apply the weighting and do all that stuff. So that's why this Ipsos panel, they think it is, that they use is so huge. It's like, because this would be, I think what Morning Consult did is they genuinely used everybody who had submitted data. What normally happens is the reason that it drops down to 2,000, or like in Pew Research, which is 4,000, because they apply screens, filters, and weighting, and then do it. I think, for instance, if I remember, someone explained it right, that this Pew Research and Morning Consult were using the exact same responses from the exact same people. The difference is Pew Research used from 9:30 to 10:06 versus that 10:04, and they applied different filtering and weighting, which is why out of that 11,000, it dropped down to 4,000. You can see how that impacts what the result is, because one is Harris plus 1 and one is Harris plus 5. To speak to Slender's point, if you took that plus 5 out of the equation, this spread shifts. And if you start looking,
essentially a tie,
at these other ones, Harris is never, outside of these outlier ones going back, she's nowhere near clocking what Clinton and Biden were polling above Trump. And then when you go into this with the battlegrounds, Arizona is now Trump plus 1, with even the New York Times Siena poll putting him plus 5.
Yeah.
Plus 5.
The other thing you can do is take a whole bunch of polling in California or New York. You're going, you poll 11,000 Californians, you're going to get your weighted answer based on where you're taking those polls from. We don't know where it was taken from, but if that's where you do your polling, you're going to get the answers that you want.
Yeah, just to keep going over the swing states, the average for Nevada, Trump plus 2.2. And it's largely driven by this newest Wall Street Journal poll where it was a Trump plus 6. But even without that, there's been a lot of data points where it's very close, or Trump plus 1. I'm a little less strong on Nevada swinging.
Yeah, that's probably the weakest of the states for Trump at the moment.
Yeah, Wisconsin, Trump, tie. So Wisconsin, because of that, is still holding firmly to that 0.3 Harris average. Michigan, though,
I don't think that 0.3. Like I said, I've said it many times now. I think Trump takes Wisconsin and Michigan.
Well, if you look at the historical on Wisconsin, it's well into Trump's camp. If you're looking at where they were polling the last few elections.
Plus, they tend to vote with Michigan. And then here's a good one: Michigan is trending Trump plus 4 from Quinnipiac, which is not a Trump-friendly poll. Emerson Hill poll, which is not Trump-friendly, has it as a tie. Insider Advantage plus 2. That's going. Pennsylvania, Trump. New York Times Siena has Harris plus 3. That seems a little outliery, but it's still, Pennsylvania may beat that. North Carolina is still holding firm for Trump in polling. we've talked about it. The storm impact could throw that off a little bit, but we hope that it doesn't. Georgia, Trump is clocking through the newest poll from a Hill Emerson poll at a +1 with an average at a 0.5, which means that when you apply the no toss-up, where is it at? Real clear no toss-up map. This is what it would look like based on the current polling, which is Trump 302 and
Harris
Waltz
236.
236. Like, where's they actually usually show the map, but which is where I actually had it, because the one state that, like you can see the new status: Nevada GOP, Michigan GOP, Pennsylvania GOP. This is how it's moved because of that. That's why it's shifted, because they've moved based on polling. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada moved into the GOP categories.
Yeah. Eric K brought it up. California is moving back to having mask mandating as of November 1st through March next year. California is insane.
Yep.
Well, that way it'll be harder to identify the person who drops off the ballots.
Or who goes on a looting spree. Do you want to bring up Polymarket too? Chad, did we lose you? Oh, there you are.
I had it muted because of Slender being in the same room. So
oh, okay.
All right, here we go. We've got Polymarket currently clocking with Trump at 54 likelihood betting market versus Kamala at 44.4. You can see right here, just in the last, I would say, week, it's kind of solidified. But in the last month, you can see it was right here, right around October 3rd.
It was right as she started her first media blitz.
Yeah.
That next morning, the market took a hard turn towards Trump.
All right, so October 3rd, Kamala starts talking, and this is how you can see the shift. Kamala does more interviews. The more interviews she does, more. This is her on The View.
Yep.
And then it drops a little because, okay, maybe it's not as bad as we think. And then it's like, nope, this is who she is, and it solidifies. So,
dude, it's pretty obvious. I mean, she's trying. That cringe commercial, trying to win over the male vote. But it is pretty obvious that the more she talks, the more men just check out. They're just like, oh, she's an idiot. Yeah, I don't think I can vote for her. She's really, really dumb and is gonna get someone hurt.
Especially as you see World War III getting ready to break out, and her administration being the ones that have kind of kicked everything into gear. Yeah, people are not excited for her. Every time she opens her mouth, it has been an absolute disaster for her as far as the polling and the betting markets are going.
I'm looking at I think the 5, when Eric is asking about what this 5% spike is, it happened here where I think it went from 43 to 46. I think there's a little bit of normal range where people get a little too, it's just like the stock market. Sometimes when there's a big rise and dip, some people buy the dip and sell the rise. So I think this is the normal solidification where she jumped back up a little bit to 45 and he dropped a little to 53.8, and then it's kind of more solidified into the 54 45 range. So
yeah, when it gets that far separated in betting markets, especially if you see it in sports, people will start to look at the odds that I'm getting if it does happen to happen. So they'll put a bit of money on it just to see, I can make a ton of money if it actually happens.
All right. Now he's speaking of what was the Trump. Okay, so yeah, this big spike here for Trump. That's when she started doing interviews. So that would have been October 7th, which was the anniversary of the horrific event in Israel. And there's been some that's when she started doing some interviews, getting tough questions, 60, and all that. It's basically in the last 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks, she started doing interviews, and as she's gotten exposure, her numbers have tanked.
Yeah, he's asking about August, September. That's when they were doing the convention and trying to introduce her and get her as much love as they could right off the bat. So you had a small spike right as they introduced her as a candidate, but that over time wore down pretty quickly as soon as she started opening her mouth.
Yeah, the peak came post Biden debate for Trump, where he was a 70. I mean, it says Kamala Harris, but that's because she wasn't even the nominee then. So,
yeah. No, they've taken Biden out of this, and I mean the flat line that you're seeing at the bottom is Kamala not being a candidate, and then her spiking as they announced her as candidate at the convention, and then you had the debate 3 weeks later, something like that, and you got no spike from that. It was basically a non-event, and then the second she started the interviews is where you're seeing this major turn towards Trump. Which, for White Pill Sunday, yeah, that's kind of the news. Is if we were to go over it, Chad, if you go into Pennsylvania, that's really what's caused the spike on the presidential election side of it. Is Pennsylvania swerved so hard in the betting markets and the polls too, that if she can't win Pennsylvania, she can't win. I mean, there's pipe dreams of Georgia and a whole bunch of other states that she would have to take, but Pennsylvania really is where this election is driving through.
Yep. I think the shift happened a lot when I forget what date was the vice presidential debate. It's weird to say the vice presidential debate had that kind of impact, but I think it was a crystallization of the bad decision making of Kamala. So, and
Yeah.
Of course we've got the friends with school shooter quotes and fun things like that. So right about then is where we see these shifts happening, and then it's moving up and down within a few percentage, but it hasn't left being a Republican, percentage odds of win since that flip happened on October 2nd.
October 1st was the debate.
Yeah, so by October 2nd, you can see October 1st, 2 p.m. By the next day when trading happens post-debate is when it shifts.
Yep.
So,
and then you saw the shift in the narrative in the news. Right before the debate, it's presidential debates. I mean, this could sway a lot of voters. And then immediately after the debate, well, vice presidential debates don't actually mean anything. It's just a VP. Well, it's meant something so far in this election, especially in Pennsylvania. And this shift that we see here is what I think everybody is looking at, and then putting it on the actual presidential election betting.
Yeah, it's weird. I think one of the things is that Vance is actually capable of making some of Trump's cases sometimes better to moderate voters than Trump does. He's a little more concise and can use some of the language, and so I think some people were swayed, not because they liked Vance as the vice presidential pick, but his ability to make the case and to tie the Biden administration to Harris walls so effectively, where every single thing, that line about day one was 1,400 days ago still is such a hammer.
Yeah, and then having Biden come out and continuously confirm that over the past few weeks has not helped her at all. That albatross is around her neck and dragging her down. So, well, we are at the hour and a half mark, so I think we're probably good for this week. Went over a lot of stuff. Slender, what do you got coming up?
Just the usual right now. Still in the middle of October, so a lot of spookies and scaries and Phasmophobia live streams over on Ascendant Arcade. Just finished the Colot playthrough last night. That was pretty fun. The bride was watching that whole playthrough with me during the stream, so she gets pretty verbose and loud at a couple of points. Good times, and I'll probably be putting out a poll for the next kind of side playthrough in the today or tomorrow. So if you want to have some say in what the next big game we stream is, other than Phasmophobia, look for that poll and cast your vote.
And that is over at Ascendant Arcade, which I will drop the link in the chat for as soon as I can get it up. Chad, what do you got?
Well, we're going to have our fun Tuesday gaming stream here on your channel. I think that's still planned. And then, as always, you can catch me and Slender, and most of the time Brahma, if his family's not around and occupying him, on the Ascendant Art Podcast Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Eastern Time's best time, easiest way to know when things start. So 9 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes we get mad before the Irish goodbyes. Sometimes we get other guests. So it's just a good, fun hangout for the end of the week. And so you can definitely catch us all there. If you haven't already, please go to the channel Ascendant Art and like, subscribe, share any of our past live streams. Just trying to promote it, get that sub count up if we can.
Cool. Today should probably be the day that we actually cross the hours for monetization with this show, if we're on the same average that we have been, which from everybody that's been in chat, I think we probably did. So hopefully we will be monetized before that election night stream, and I will let you guys know as soon as we get there. But watch hours, we were down to like 50 needed going into this morning.
Yeah, and if anybody just wants to help put him over that threshold, set up a playlist, some of his old gaming streams, or some of
or just play the bullpen
or
for
just the bullpen,
one day.
Just put them on, and just you can put it on a tab and let it go while you're sleeping, whatever. Just to give Brahma that extra pad when he seeks that monetization decision.
Yeah, because they're going to pull some hours from me because we've done this in an art simulcast and a few other things. So, but yeah, let's see, what do we got this week? Monday Night Meltdown on Comics Division's channel, the gaming stream on my channel on Tuesday night. Wednesday, we've got no Christian panel this week, but we did do one last week if you want to go check that out on Kerry Smith's channel. Thursday night, back on Comics, Ascendant Art with you guys. Saturday nights, we've got Bourbon and Boarding on my channel and that 70s Rock Fans channel. And then we're back here Sunday mornings. So thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a great week. And yeah, try to be white-pilled about this stuff because it's going better than I think people think. So we will catch y'all later. Here's the intro as an outro.
Bye.
Broken system chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. To anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where we don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Flashing perfect teeth, but behind those eyes just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their